Shalom, my dear friends. Shalom. Today, the 25th day of the month of Sivan of the year 5777, corresponding to the 19th of June of the year 2017. And after many sessions of studying Sefer Iyov, the book of Job, we today come to the climax of the work, the conclusion of the second ma'aneh, the second address by the Holy One, blessed be He, to Job. with the completion of the depiction of the Leviathan. We shall also in Tractate Shabbat be coming to the conclusion of chapter 23, thus leaving us in the case of Masachet Shabbat with one chapter, and likewise in Sefer Iyov one chapter before we make a siyum. So thank you for following with us until now, and let us therefore today now turn to our studies first in the Tanakh, in the book of Job. Shalom. Today, the 25th day of the month of Sivan of the year 5777, corresponding to the 19th of June of the year 2017. And today we come to the concluding section of the second ma'aneh, the second address by the Holy One, blessed be He, to Job, in Job chapter 41, verses 4 to 26, the earlier part of which we have already studied in our previous session. And this section further depicts, and in more terrifying detail, the nature of this beast, this Leviathan, that God has created and is using Leviathan to bring the world to its destiny. The graphic artists have indeed excelled themselves in the last few centuries in trying to depict these great monsters, and now we come to this section which is highly elusive, and this. So let's now come to the Hebrew text of Sefer Iyov in our chapter 41, starting at verse 4, and to recapitulate. In the previous verses, after God had mockingly asked Job to try to capture the Leviathan to play with because of the impossibility of this, then at the beginning of chapter 41, the first verse said that anybody who might try, his hope would rapidly be disappointed because he would be shocked and terrified by the very appearance of this creature. How would not he who would try to arouse this creature be truly cruel? And if so, verse 2 at the end, Umihu lefonai yisyatzov, who then could stand before me, before God Almighty? So verse 3 had departed from the subject of the Leviathan, now answering Job's question about why he had had only a visitation of afflictions and had not had his reward for being a tzaddik. God challenges him in verse 3 and says, Mi hikdimani v'ashalem. Who is it that has come before me on their own initiative that I should pay them, if not that I already gave them the opportunity to carry out the merit that they wish now for the reward? In other words, God is not bound to pay reward to any of his creations, and if he pays reward, that is out of his beneficence and kindness. Tachas kol hashomayim li hu. Under all of the heavens, it is all mine. And then in the allegorical explanation of verse 4, this continuation of the theme of verse 3, that God has the power to pay the tzaddik his rewards, and it is through payment of goodness and beneficence to the children, the offspring of the tzaddik. Lo acharish badov. I shall not silence and strike with dumbness his branches, the branches of his family. Udevar gevurois, the matter of the mighty deeds in which the tzaddik overwhelmed his own evil inclination. V'chin erko, the grace of his setting forth his prayers. That is the midrashic explanation, but on the plane of the simple, straightforward meaning, lo aharish badov, I shall not be silent about the limbs, is going back to Leviathan, as our commentators say he's going back, according to the simple meaning of the text, to the depiction of the Leviathan in far more detail. So, Harish Badov, I shall not remain silent about his limbs of this awesome creature, udevar of Gevuros, nor the matter of the might of this creature, v'chin erko, and the grace of its preciousness there in the sea. In the words of Metzudat David, however much I have already related to you in the previous section to Job about the Leviathan, that in itself will be sufficient to answer all of your words. Nevertheless, I will not remain silent as to telling the might that is in this creature, the Leviathan, and the chin erko, the preciousness of his stature, says Metzudat David, against all of the other creatures, in order that from this you will be able to infer more of the greatness of God's exaltedness over everything, since this creature is exalted over all creation. So here we have pointing the Kabbalistic dimension of the Leviathan, which is the aspect of Yesod, which is the awesome source of all of the blessings coming into Malchut, into the world, into the level that is also called Behemah. And now the text continues with the depiction of Leviathan. Verse 5, Migilo penei levusho, bechefel riseno, mi yovo. Migilo penei levusho. Back to the questions. Who has revealed the face of its garment? What is under those scales that we shall hear of, this formidable fortress of fortification? The Leviathan, our sages comment, is a kosher species of fish because it has, as we'll be hearing, the scales, the kaskasim, and also the snapir, the fin, that is which are the two signs of kosher species. So who has ever uncovered and been able to penetrate the scales of this creature? Bechefel risno, the resen is the bit which holds an animal, the muzzle in its mouth, the bit in its mouth, the muzzle around its mouth to hold it back. But it has this name because that the original use of the word resen is actually for the mouth, for the inside the jaws where the resen implement to hold the animal is placed. Bechefel risno, in the double doors of his mouth, mi yovo, who could possibly come in as an enemy unless this creature is going to consume them. Dalesi fonov mi piteach, svivos shinov emo. Dalatei fonov, the gates, the doors of his face, of his inner face. Mi piteach, who has opened them? For the Yesod is flowing into the Malchut, which is two dalets, which put together make a mem, which is a womb. And here we have allusions to the meeting of these levels of Bino, me,
and Dalsi Fonov. The Fonov is the interior of the aspect of Yesod, of Leviathan, and the gates are face to face with Malchut receiving. Who is opening this and bringing forth the blessings from Yesod? Sevivos Shinov Amor. Around his teeth is awe and terror at this monster. Verse 7, Ga'avor afiki moginim, sogur hosom tzor. Ga'avor, the pride of the afike moginim, the mighty ones that are maginim, that are shields. Sogur, he is closed, choisom tzor, with a narrow seal, that is to say, between the scales, there's no space for anything to penetrate. That is the Ga'avor Afiki Moginim, the pride of the scales of this great sea monster, that these mighty scales that are shield to him are Sagur Chosom Tzor. It's all closed up with a narrow chotam, a narrow seal, with respect to Yesod. That will be the seal of holiness through which Yesod gives down to the Malchut. Verse 8, Echod be'echod yigashu, v'ruach lo yovo v'nehem. Echod be'echod, one against one, yigashu, do they come close. V'ruach lo yovo v'nehem. No ruach, no spirit, no air can come between them, so tight are these scales of his armor. Ish be'ochihu yiduboku, yislakedu velo yisporodu. Ish be'ochihu, each with his brother, the one that he is attached to, yiduboku, they shall be stuck together. Yislakedu, they will have a likud, a binding together. Velo yisporodu, they shall not be separated. Rabbi Nachman, in his teaching in the Likutei Moharan, part 2, teaching 5, darshans the verse of the Gav Afiki Moginim to indeed refer to the Kedushat HaBrit, the holiness of the covenant that is closed up with the narrow seal of the covenant that maintains the holiness of the people of Israel. Echod be'echod yigashu, I've not seen this anywhere, but I'm wondering if here is perhaps one of the sources, the Midrash, that is alluding to the Leviathan and the Behemoth in this battle that is prophesied in the section in the Talmud that we shall be studying later on. Echod be'echod yigashu, one to the other will draw close. Ruach lo yovo benehem, no spirit will come between them. Ish be'ochihu yuduboku, the one will be attached and bound up to the other. And maybe this verse is perhaps the asmachta, the verse upon which is based the Agadah of the battle between Leviathan and Behemoth at the end of time. Ish be'ochiu yuduboku, one with the other, with his brother, the fellow great creature, they shall attach together. Yislakatu, they shall be locked together. V'lo yisporodu, they shall not be separated. But according to the obvious pshat here of the verse, it's not speaking about that at all. It's actually speaking about the kaskasim, the scales of the Leviathan. And now coming to the snorting coming out of the nostrils, the spouting and snorting of the waters out of his nostrils. Very beautiful Hebrew here in verse 10. Atishuisov tohel or V'ainov ka'af apei shocha. Atishoisov. Well, that will be sneezing, the sneezing and the snorting of this mighty sea creature. Atishoisov in Hebrew today, atisha is a sneeze, lehita atesh, to sneeze. Atishoisov tohel or, will shine forth light. We've had this verb tohel earlier in Job's depiction of his months of tranquility in the womb. That his light would shine over his face, over his head. The same root here, tahel, as in the word we have today in English, halo, the shine of the light coming forth out of his snorting, the great light shone by this foam rising up, atishoisov tohel or, ve'enov, and the eyes of this creature, ki'af apei shocha, like the blinking of the eye of the dawn. The af is the whole mechanism of the eye with the eyelids coming over, and as the eyelids open, the dawn of the light of the inner eye shines forth, and this is the light of the eyes of the Leviathan. Such tremendous beauty here. Verse 11, Mipiv lapidim yahalochu, kidudei eish yismalotu. The fury of this creature, mipiv, out of his mouth, lapidim, fiery torches, yahalochu, go forth. Kidudei eish, these are furnaces of fire, these are pots of fire. Yismalotu, they are being spewing forth. Lihmalet is to escape their blasting out of his mouth. Minachirov yetzi ashon, kedud nofuach ve'agmon. Out of his nostrils there comes forth smoke, like a dud, like a seething pot. Dud nafuach, swollen with the swelling of the contents. The agbon, another kind of pot. This fiery fury coming forth from the Leviathan nafsho. Geholim telahit, v'lahav mipiv yetze. Nafsho, his very soul, geholim tahalet, shines forth, blasts forth with gechalim, with fiery coals. V'lahav, a flame shoots forth, mipiv yetzeh, the lahav, the flame, mipiv yetzeh, out of his mouth it comes forth. But tzavoro yolin oz, ulefonov todutz de'ovo. The neck of a creature is the place of its greatest glory and splendor. And here in the case of the Leviathan, but Savoro, in the neck of this mighty sea creature, Yolin Oz, shall remain always Oz, great strength. Oz is one of the attributes of the Sphira of Yesod, and this is coming forth from Leviathan, the Oz, ulefonov todutz de'ovo. Before him, todutz de'ovo. De'ovo is sadness. Sadness itself will turn into joy as the Leviathan plows forward through the waters of the sea and channel parts anything that was still and not moving. Todutz, the joy of the advance of the Leviathan, turns all of this to joy. A further depiction of the flesh of the Leviathan, verse 15. Maplei v'soro doveku, yotzuk olov bal yimot. Maplei v'soro, these would be the clumps of his flesh, the rolls of the flesh of the Leviathan, the muscles of strength. Doveku, they are stuck together, attached together. Yotzuk Olov, it is, the strength is poured forth down upon him, Bal Yimot, he cannot be moved. This great sea creation of God is absolutely unconquerable and impenetrable. Rashi tells us that Yotzik Olov, the last words in verse 15, Yotzik Olov Bal Yimot, refers to each of the rolls of the flesh. They are molded one on top of the other, so they cannot be moved. They cannot be separated one from the other. It's an expression of pouring out of molten metal. And everything there is so firmly cast and molded. And now, if that is the outer flesh, now look at the inner heart of the sea creature. Libo yotzuk kamo oven, v'yotzuk kefelach tachtis. His very heart, yotzuk, is hewn out, kamo oven, like a stone. It's a remarkable feature of this creature that is considered to have a heart of stone, perhaps in refusal to do anything except the will of his creator, of God. Nothing can turn him to compassion if not decreed by God. V'yotzuk kefelach tachtis. His heart is a further comparison. It's hewn out and molded out, kefelach tachtis, like the lower part of a mill, where the grain is in the pelach and the stone above is revolving inside the pelach and grinding. So the pelach is a very heavy lower part of the stone mill, and that is the depiction of the stone determinedness of the heart of Leviathan. Miseiso Yoguru Elim, Mishvorim Yischatou. Miseiso, from his seis, from his elevation. Yoguru Elim, there shall fear those that are powerful. The mighty are all in fear of this creature that sits above all the other creatures in God's creation. Mishvorim Yischatou. The word Mishvorim here is related by some to the Hebrew word of the waves of the sea. Rashi on the verse says that the waves of the sea, which are called Mishbarim, they are lacking before him, because he breaks the waves as he flies through them. When he is flying through and floating on the waves of the sea. So, according to Rashi's interpretation, these mishparim yischato, the waves are lacking as he flies through, making a channel through the sea. Masigehu cherev beli sokum, chanis maso v'shiryo. Masigehu, he that attains him, he that reaches him. That would be cherev beli sokum, a sword that shall not rise up, shall not be victorious, nor any other of the instruments of war. Chanis, the spear. Masor might be some kind of missile. Shiryo would be perhaps armor. None could defeat Leviathan. Yachshov le-7 barzel, le'itz rikovon nechusho. Yachshov le-7 he will consider as straw, barzel, iron, le'itz rikovon, to a tree of rottingness. nechusha, and his strength is bronze, he can break through it. Lo yavrichenu venkoshes, lekash nepchulo avnei kola. Lo yavrichenu, they cannot cause him to flee. Ven koshes, the child of the bow of the archer. Lekash nefchulo avnei kola. To straw are turned for him even the stones of the sling, even the best cannons. Kekash nechshavu sosoch. V'yishak l'rash kidon. Kekash nechshavu sosoch. Like a straw are considered the totach, the missiles fired against him. V'yishak, he laughs at the rash kidon, the noise of the javelins. Tachtov chadudei chores, yirpad chorutz aleitit. Rashi's pshat on this verse 22 is a very beautiful pshat. We're now describing the snapir, the fin of the Leviathan, tachtov, that is his underpart, that is a fin with which he swims. Chadudei chores, they are the sharp flashings of chores here in the sense of the sun, which appears elsewhere in Nach, in the book of Joshua, and elsewhere judges cheres, the sun. So it's like the glintings of the sun. Yirpad charutz aleitit. Yirpad, ripud is that with which you which you bed down upon, you make your bed upon. The charutz would be, according to Rashi's pshat, the precious gold that is sending out this radiant light in the place of the Leviathan below. Aleitit, upon the mud upon which the Leviathan comes to rest. Yartiach kasir metzulo, yom yosim kamer kocho. A very expressive verse in the Hebrew. Yartiach kasir metzulo. Yartiach, from the root of ratach, to boil. He makes to boil kasir, like a pot, metzula, the depths of the sea, when he swims through, creating this foam around him. Yom yosim, the sea does he make kamir kocho. The mir kocho would be a whole mixture, like the pharmacist makes a mixture of herbs and spices. He turns the sea into a turbulence. Acharov yoir nosiv, yachshov tahom lesivo. Acharov yoir nosiv. After him, there's lighting up the nosiv, the path. Yachshov tahom lesivo. He considers the deep to be like an old and weak one that he can simply fly through. So now we're coming to these closing words of this ma'aneh of God Almighty to Job, the end of his address to Job, and the summation of this passage where, after the beautiful teachings of God's providence over every detail of creation, God has revealed to Job the mysteries of the behemoth and the Leviathan in prophecy, and now climaxing with the Leviathan, verse 25, Ein al ofor moshlo, he'osu livli hos. Ein al ofor moshlo, there is none upon the afar, the earth element of creation that is Moshlo, the one that rules over Leviathan, his ruler. There is none on earth, he is above all. So this again would be the Sfirah of Yesod, that is over the afar, it is over the earth element, Yesod, sending down blessing to Malchut, which is the earth element, and the Leviathan is the source of all of this coming down to the world. And the above verses speaking about the journeys of the Leviathan through the seas are very evocative of the Yichud of Yesod with Malchut, where Yichud, with the Yesod foundation, that is the Leviathan, and the sea itself, the Yam, that is the Malchut. And here we see the way of this creature through the sea, and he is making his connections. Yartiach kasir mitzulo yom yosim kamer kocho. He makes the depths boil like a pot, and the sea does he make into this merkocha, this turmoil that is very evocative of the yichud. Achrov yo'ir nosiv. After him there radiates this path that he leaves behind him, like today a jet liner is leaving a whole trail behind the plane as the plane advances. Nosiv, this channel in the seas. Yachshov tehom lesevo. For him, the tehom, the depths are like seva, like the grey beard, the foam of the sea, but the sea is weak in the face of the Leviathan. Ein al ofer moshlo, none that is ruling over Leviathan, over the whole earth. He'osu livli chos. He that has been made livli chos, to be without any fear. He does not have any fear because he is above all. In the world, he has no need to fear any. And this is Leviathan. And if so, how much more so God? This is all the time the inferred kal vachomer. Eis kol govoa yir'eh. Hu melech al kol bnei shochatz. Eis kol govoa yir'eh. He, Leviathan, who presides, as it were, over this creation in God's providence, over the creation through this aspect of Yesod, is kol govoa, everyone that is haughty and exalted, yir'eh, he sees them like the one that is above sees he that is below, in the way that the one that is below cannot see the one that is above. As kol govoa, even the highest of all, kol gavoa, every high one, yir'eh, he sees them. Hu melech al kol bnei shochatz. He is the king over all the children of shochatz. With the word shochatz would have the connotation of arrogance. And that's exactly what the whole book is about. Our needing to overcome our arrogance and to attain humility in the face of God. So with that, my friends, we're going to leave our study of the Mikra here for today, and we should be going on in our next session, God willing, on Wednesday, with a further explanation of this and the closing chapter of Book of Job, coming to our Siyum, God willing, this coming Thursday. And we shall now have a brief interval of a few minutes and then come to our studies of the Mishnah for today.
Heilige Shabbos, la 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 la, Heilige Shabbos, la 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 la, Heilige Shabbos, la 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 la, Heilige Shabbos.
Shalom again, my dear friends, and let's now come to the next part of our learning for the day, where we come to the conclusion of our Mishnah Tractate Shabbat, chapter 23. Shalom, today, the 25th day of the month of Sivan of the year 5777, corresponding to the 19th of June of the year 2017. And today we come to the concluding Mishnahs of chapter 23 of Tractate Shabbat, where we see how our Tractate of Shabbat literally covers all ages and stages of life. We had Mishnahs about the birth process, about circumcision, about carrying a child or walking a child in the street. We had the ornaments of girls to go out with on Shabbat. We've had now references to special bridal ornaments, and now we come to matters of literally life and death covered in our tractate in these coming Mishnahs. Life in the form of the mitzvah of seeing that a couple should be married with proper dignity and beauty, and the proper dignity and respect that must be paid to the dead, and how this relates to the observance of the Shabbat. We had learned yesterday about the Tchum of Shabbat, the Shabbat limits of a city or a town, or the place where a person has fixed his Shabbat residence for that Shabbat, and he may not walk further than 2,000 cubits from the edge of the town or the city or the village, or his estate. And we saw that he could walk to the end of the limit. He could walk to the 2,000 cubits of the limit if it was for something that in any case would have been permitted for him to do on the Shabbat. If he's waiting at the end of the Shabbat limit on Saturday evening, waiting for the Shabbat to end so he can walk to guard his fruits, for example. And now we see in the coming Mishnah, the fourth Mishnah of chapter 23 of Shabbat, that by the same token, where there is an element of a mitzvah that requires to be done urgently as soon as possible after the Shabbat, it is possible to go to the edge of the Shabbat limit outside the town or city and wait there on Saturday afternoon until it gets dark in order to attend immediately to the matter in hand, where it's necessary to go to the next town or further beyond the Shabbat limit to deal with the following. As Mishnah Dalet tells us, Machshichin al hatchum, it is permissible to wait for dark at the end of the Shabbat limit, lefakeach al iskei kalo, if it is to supervise matters relating to a bride, her getting married, vi'al iskei hameis, and also any matters required for somebody that has died. For example, lohavi loy oroin v'sachrichin, in order to bring for him an aron, a coffin, and tachrichin, the shrouds in which the dead person will be buried. For this purpose, the person could set off on his journey on the Shabbat and get to the edge of the Shabbat limit and go no further, but wait till it gets dark, and immediately on the exit of the Shabbat, he will go to deal with business relating to one of these matters, which is a mitzvah. And in this case, the sages did not decree that a person should not wait at the edge of the Shabbat limits to the end of Shabbos to do this after the Shabbat. There was no such decree. It's permissible to do this. With that, since we are on the subject of death and funerals, we come to the question of a non-Israelite nochri shehevi chalilin b'Shabbos, that brought pipes on the Shabbat, pipes that would be used at a funeral in those times, pipes that people would use for mournful dirges at the time of the funeral. And here we touch on the relationship between Israel and the nations when it comes to the Shabbat. One may not on the Shabbat benefit from a labor performed by a non-Israelite. In this case, the non-Israelite, the Nochri, has brought on the Shabbat an item that is here, could be used immediately after the Shabbat for the funeral. Even so, even there is a mitzvah to show honor to the dead, since the pipe was brought on the Shabbat by the non-Israelite, the Israelite may not benefit from this labor, even where it is for a mitzvah. So our Mishnah not only is touching on issues to do with funerals, but also on the extent to which an Israelite may benefit from a labor performed by a non-Israelite. We already had this at in the earlier chapter, dealing with having benefit from a lamp lighted by a non-Israelite, or having water drawn from a well into the public domain by a non-Israelite, or coming down the gangway from a boat to the land after the non-Israelite put it up. So here we see that where a labor was performed specifically for the Israelites, lo yispod bohen Israel. The Israel should not use these pipes for the hesped dirges, elo imkein bo mimokom korov, unless they came from a nearby place. If they came from a nearby place, it would be different, because the chalilim, the pipes, could have been legitimately be brought in by the non-Israelite directly after the Shabbat, and if they wait for the short amount of time it would take to bring the pipes from the nearby place, they may after the Shabbat use those pipes for the funeral proceedings. The Mishnah continues, Mishnah 4, Asu loy oroin v'chofru loy kever. Asu loy oroin, if they made for him an aron, a coffin, v'chofru voy kever, if they dug out a grave, yikover bo Yisrael, an Israelite may be buried in that coffin. Here the presumption is that the non-Israelite made a coffin either for another non-Israelite or to sell for anybody that might need a coffin, and the repetition of the Asu Loi Oron Chofru Loi Kever is that the Nachri, the non-Israelite, made the coffin for himself. He dug the grave for one of his own, and in that case, where the coffin or the grave were not prepared specifically for an Israelite on the Shabbat, Yikover bo Yisrael, an Israelite may be buried in this coffin and in this grave. The reason being that, as the Mishnah continues, if the coffin and the grave were prepared specifically for the Jew on the Shabbat, lo yikover boy oilomis, the Jew may never be buried in such a grave ever. This Jew for whom it was hewn out and prepared may never ever be buried in that grave or with that coffin. The reason being that it would be a violation of the honor of the Shabbat, where to show respect to the dead, a coffin or a grave that were prepared in violation of the Shabbat were being used. That would be a reproof to the dead person, and for that reason it may not be done. Well, now in the fifth Mishnah of our tractate, we come in our chapter, we come to the laws of actually dealing with a dead body on the Shabbat, which are a necessary part of life at times, and our tractate covers everything about human life from beginning to end and all of the labors involved in feeding ourselves and everything else. So on Shabbat, what might be done for a person that has died on the Shabbat? And let us understand that the dead body is one of the prime examples of muktzeh. We've spoken about the concept of articles like work tools and other utensils that are muktzeh, that are put aside and may not be moved on the Shabbat. And the same is true of the body of a dead person, that it is muktzeh and may not be directly moved on the Shabbat. However, moving and touching are two different things, and for those who are not afraid to approach these issues, our Mishnah tells us, Oisin kol tzorchi hameis. It is permitted on the Shabbat to do all that is needed for the body of the dead person. Sochin umedichin oisoi. It is permitted to smooth over oil, rub oil over the body. Medichin also, that will be washing the body. Uvilvad lo yozuzo bo ever, on condition that they do not move a limb of the dead body. Touching the body is permissible, but moving the body directly is not permitted. However, Shomtin es hakar mitachtov, it will be permitted to pull out the bed, the mattress of the bed from underneath the body, if there was a need to transfer the body from the bed onto the ground. If, for example, the body is with fluids on the bed and is likely quicker to come to the stage of decomposing and giving off bad smells, where it is preferable to have the body lie on the cooler ground. Although you cannot physically move the body, you could tip the mattress so that the body will slip onto the floor, and that is permitted on Shabbat. Shomtin es akar mitachtov, it is permissible to pull out the mattress from under the body. They may place the body thereby on the sand to cool down. b'shvil sheyamtin, so that the body will remain, so that it will not deteriorate until the time after Shabbat, when the funeral can be held. Now, the Mishnah continues, Koishrin es halechi, where necessary, it is permitted to bind the jaw. Loi sheyale, after death, where the jaw is inclined to slip down open, it will be permitted to bind the jaw with a band around the head so that the jaw will not go any further. As the Mishnah continues, Lo sheyale, elo shelo yosef, not that the jaw should rise up. You can't pull it up with the band around it, elo shelo yosef, but so that it will not continue to drop down. And that is again the honor of the dead. And now a very surprising and interesting comparison made by our Mishnah to a subject not at all related to the dead. V'chein koiro shenishbero. Likewise, in the case of the beam of a roof, shenishbero, that had got broken and was hanging down, somchin oiso besafsol, it will be permitted to support the beam that has dropped down with a bench. A bench is permitted to carry on the Shabbat. V'chein ba'aruchas hamito, likewise with the aruchas hamito, this is the long beam making up the bed. It will be permitted to take that and use it to support the Korah beam of the roof. Lo shetale, not in order to make it go up back into place, that would not be permitted. Elo shelo tosif, but that it shouldn't add to falling down further, to further interfere with the life of the house below. So this is compared to the beam itself is muktzah, it's part of the structure of the building, and you cannot move it to put it back into place or even approach, but you can at least support it, prevent it coming down further. Now this is compared to the binding of the jaw of the dead person. Here we see a very important point that must be made in our study of the Mishnah, whether the Mishnah is comparing two things: the binding of a human being, which we might consider to be a very sacrosanct subject, the proper respect for the dead, and this compared to a seemingly mundane issue, which is the support of a beam that's come down from the roof. But the Mishnah is drawing attention to a common denominator between these two cases. Just like the human body is a case of muktzah that may not be moved, but may be supported, another case of muktzah that may not be moved, but may be supported, is that of the beam. That is not to say that they are considered in the same category. You do not compare the dead person to a mere beam of wood, but the halachic common denominator is the status of the muktzah and what you may do with it. And with that, we come to the concluding section of chapter 23. Ein me'amitzim es hameis b'Shabbos. This is referring to closing the eyes of the dead after departure of the soul. And on a weekday, it is customary, after the soul has departed, when it's quite certain that the person is now dead, to close the eyes if they were open at the time of death. And now our Mishnah is telling us that because the dead body is muktzah, if the person has died on the Shabbat, ein ma'amtzin es hameis b'Shabbos. That is not, we do not close the eyes of the dead person after the departure of the soul on the Shabbos. V'lo b'chol, nor even on a weekday, im yetzias anefesh, at the time of the departure of the soul itself. At that actual time, while the person is literally at their last gasp, it is not yet permitted to close the eyes of the person until it is quite definite that the person is no longer alive, that this is a dead body. And the reason is now explained in the continuation of our Mishnah, which brings up a most important point. V'hama'amitz im yetzias nefesh harizeh shufich domim. Hama'amitz, the person that moves the eyes of the person on their last gasp, im yetzias nefesh, with the departure of the soul from the body while they're still on the verge of departing, harizeh shufich domim. This person is shedding blood. This is killing the person by hastening the death, even in this seemingly most minor way. This is considered to be a bloodshed, and this is contrary to the halakha to hasten the death process in any way. It is not forbidden where death is deemed to be close to cease giving certain treatments or medications that were being given if this is not going to bring about the death of the person, or will cease impeding their departure. And certain measures may be taken, but to actually hasten the death is forbidden by the halakha, and this would apply both to a born person, and likewise it would apply in the case of abortion. In no way is it permitted to hasten or bring about the death of a fetus. That too is called shofech damim, bloodshed, and is strictly forbidden by the halakha. With that, my friends, we are going to bring our studies for today to their conclusion. I'll be back with God's help on Wednesday of this week with the concluding section of Job and rounding off the discussion with some look at the Talmudic and Kabbalistic and Hasidic passages about the significance of the Leviathan and the Behemoth. And on Wednesday and Thursday, we will also be looking at chapter 24 of Masechet Shabbat, and thereby concluding the Masechta. So with that, my dear friends, a little earlier than normal today, we are concluding our studies here, and I'll be back, God willing, at 1600 hours Israel time on this coming Wednesday. And so, from Yerushalayim Yer HaKodesh, the holy city of Jerusalem, Shalom.
Le'yom dechu